It's on. A full-fledged MAGA civil war is taking place between the MAGA tech bros and the far right-wing MAGA nationalists. They're going at it. We will break it down. You've got Elon Musk banning the far-right MAGA nationalists. The far-right MAGA nationalists saying, all of these tech bros are now saying we need immigrants to fill engineering jobs. Donald, didn't you tell us that you were going to build schools here and give all these high-paying jobs to Americans? Wait a minute, you're trying to bring these jobs now from India like the tech bro MAGAs want? We'll break it down, and also I'll read you what Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk have been saying, because if any Democrat ever used language like that, I guarantee you it would be the front page story around the clock, and it would be all over. We'll break it down. But speaking about it being all over, we finally got that Matt Gaetz report. The Ethics Committee report dropped. It showed that Matt Gaetz engaged in statutory rape. It showed that he engaged in illicit drug use. It showed that he engaged in obstruction of the congressional investigation and took improper gifts. But what I want to talk about here, because we cover that ethics report in detail, in depth, though, is the selective prosecution here. Notably, the Republican special counsel went after Hunter Biden for filling out a form when he purchased a gun in 2018, saying that he was not under the influence of drugs. Well, Matt Gaetz is a gun owner. Why is Matt Gaetz not getting charged with that same thing? Similarly, if you look at Florida state law prosecutions, there's been a number of people who have been charged with statutory rape, who had sex with 17-year-olds. Why wasn't Matt Gaetz being charged with that? We'll talk about what real weaponization is here on the Midas Touch Network. And speaking about real weaponization, before Donald Trump's even taken office, he's using his special advisor or senior advisor, or soon to be Stephen Miller's nonprofit organization. And it's viewed as a nonprofit, but Miller's out there sending on that America First legal organization that he runs, this letterhead. He's sending and these letters to all of these different cities throughout the country, threatening them that the federal government is going to take action against them, using the nonprofit to do that, trying to threaten and intimidate them before Trump even takes office. I want to break that down. I also want to talk about the concept of quasi-governmental agencies. At what point, Michael Popak, where you have these fake agencies like DOJ and First America Legal that are acting as arms of the government, do they become susceptible to FOIA requests, and do they become within the purview of being viewed as public actors for purposes of holding them accountable for their conduct? I also want to talk about this Tik Tok ban that's set to take place on January 19th. And Donald Trump filed this bizarre amicus brief requesting that the Supreme Court pause the ban, even though it was signed into law by President Biden. It was a bipartisan bill that led to the Tik Tok ban. And for those watching, and those listening couldn't see that, but we just flashed on screen the original Tik Tok lawsuit, which was Tik Tok versus Trump, because Trump was the OG Tik Tok banner. It was Trump who wanted to ban TikTok, and now there's a big donor of Donald Trump, Jeffrey Yass, and he's been giving a lot of money to Trump, and he's a TikTok investor as well. So now the positions have kind of suddenly changed, and I think it's important that we at least reflect and understand what the Senate committee that investigated TikTok said that they were doing with our data and how it was being potentially used to surveil on American citizens in China, and why this even came about in the first place. But we'll break it all down and more. This is Legal AF. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year. Michael Popak, great to see you.
You too. I thought to myself, this is going to be our last weekend Legal AF before the new year. Happy New Year. We're really excited here on Midas Touch and on Legal AF about what's on the other side of 2025. I don't mean Trump's taking office. I just mean that we are well positioned to continue to provide the independent journalism, commentary, and analysis that is so desperately needed now more than ever, as I like to say in some of my hot takes. And now more than ever, we're starting to see that MAGA is not monolithic. And there hasn't been the MAGification of the United States coming off of the election, far from it. And this type of, we'll get into the civil war that has just broken out, of course, on social media, involving Elon Musk and Ramaswamy. I mean, when you use the R word and the C word, we're going to get into it in a minute, against the American people and MAGA voters, that may not go well. And when you are, as you said, it's hard to say you're employed by a fictitious organization. I think those two concepts are mutually exclusive. But when you say you work for something that's the Department of Government Efficiency, that's neither a department nor in the government, and you're not subject to things like FBI background checks and Senate confirmation processes, you might just get the wild cards that we're watching now. And to see the Laura Loomers of the world, or I think you referred to it on the show with Michael Cohen as the OG MAGA, she's a 9/11 election denier. She's the one that gave Donald Trump the idea that hardworking Haitians in Springfield, Ohio, when they're bored, are eating cats and dogs. That came from Laura Loomer's fevered imagination. And she's decided that she didn't vote for Elon Musk, and she didn't vote for Ramaswamy, who's now known on Truth Social as Khan Swami. The two of them are trending as hashtag Doge twins, and that's not a compliment. We'll get into it in a minute. And it's all over this arcane area that you and I know well as practicing lawyers and business owners as the H-1B visa. And Elon Musk and Ramaswamy's position about it, which has driven MAGA crazy. Or as I said on a recent hot take on the Legal AF channel, MAGA woke up and realized they don't like black and brown people. And again, they forgot that. And now they're going after, through the H-1B fight, they're going after Elon Musk and by extension, Donald Trump, even before the 119th Congress gets sworn in on the 3rd and before Donald Trump gets sworn in on the 20th.
So the way this all went about was Donald Trump appointed as a special advisor, a fairly accomplished person. I mean, this isn't a political. This guy, Sri Ram Krishnan, he was born in India. He worked all these big tech jobs here in the United States. He currently was working at Andreessen Horowitz, not shockingly, a big venture capitalist firm, because that's where Donald Trump pretty much picks his cabinet and advisors from. But he previously worked at the Twitter that all of MAGA hated, and Facebook and Snap, and you name the ABCs of big tech. This guy has worked there throughout his career, and he's a respected guy. And he kind of took that plunge from, tech bro world into MAGA tech bro around the same time as all of these tech bro venture capitalists saw that they could take over the MAGA movement for their own kind of agenda. And it seems that they view, I don't think it seems, but that they view the MAGA base as very malleable and very stupid, and that they could take advantage of these people. But the people who they're calling stupid are the OG MAGAs who have been with Trump forever. And they're very nationalistic. They hate immigrants. They hate black and brown people. And they've made that very clear over the years. Mass bloody deportations, build the wall. And so this is this kind of bizarre coalition that's being held together right now, that we see. And so Trump appoints Sri Ram Krishnan as a special advisor to artificial intelligence. OG far right-wing nationalist MAGA goes, why are you bringing in all these people from India? To which Elon and the tech bros are saying, we need these talented engineers from India. What are you talking about? We love our engineers from India. We don't like, and they were trying to appeal to the far right MAGA. We don't want the other immigrants, like when it comes to agriculture and hospitality and construction. Let's mass deport them, do mass deportations there. But the H-1 visa is a process that allows us to get foreign workers in specialty occupations like engineering, and we can pay them less money to do these jobs. They're kind of beholden to the tech corporations. They work incredibly long hours. And in order for us to run our tech companies, we need engineers from India. To which the far right-wing nationalist MAGA said, build schools, get these jobs to Americans, train Americans. Your whole thing was America first, not India first. What are you talking about? And then this is where kind of Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy kind of, took it an extra step. And you use the R word. I hate using this word, but I just want people to know what you're referring to. On multiple occasions, Elon Musk started referring to the MAGA base as retarded and subtard, and he said, go F yourself. And then Vivek Ramaswamy said that the American culture of mediocrity is to blame, and essentially said, look, all these white families, and not so many words, Vivek basically, like these white families had their kids grow up with Boy Meets World and Zack Slater from Saved by the Bell, while Indian families were having their kids study around the clock and work much harder and had higher aspirations. And so really, the big problem here is that, American white families are just not doing the good job. And we need Indian engineers from India because the culture is just a more ambitious, smarter, more sophisticated, harder working culture. And they're saying that to the MAGA base, whose whole thing is the exact opposite. So the MAGA base is like, huh? What? I mean, they're saying it in a lot more stronger terms than I am. Laura Loomer goes, the elephant in the room is that Elon Musk, who is not MAGA and has never been, is a total effing drag on the Trump transition. He's a stage 5 clinger who overstayed his welcome at Mar-a-Lago in an effort to become Trump's side piece and be the point man for all of his accomplices in big tech to slither into Mar-a-Lago. Laura Loomer calling him a side piece. This is where Ian Miles Chung, who's a big right-wing influencer, he's not American, he lives in Malaysia, this guy, and he refers to the other part of MAGA. And again, I hate using this word, so please forgive me. It's newsworthy, so I have to say it. He goes, much of the anger being driven towards Elon Musk today is simply disappointment being projected by the retarded right that's on the fringes of the conservative movement against Musk, whom they wish was an unrepentant racist like they are. And then Elon Musk responds exactly. Elon Musk also was asked by some of his right-wing supporters, like questions like this. There are over 330 million people in America. Surely there must be enough among them to build your ultimate team. Why would you deny real Americans that opportunity by bringing foreigners here? Elon Musk responds, your understanding of the situation is upside down and backwards. Of course, my companies and I would prefer to hire Americans, and we do. And that is much easier than going through the incredibly painful and slow work visa process. However, there is a dire shortage of extremely talented and motivated engineers in America. This is not about handing out opportunities from some magical hat. You don't get it. This is blindingly obvious when looking at NBA teams, as the physical differences are so obvious to see. However, the mental differences between humans are far bigger than the physical differences. In other words, Elon Musk is saying, in not so many words, that white Americans are dumber than foreigners who come here and work the jobs for him. Then someone responds to him, open a school, we have brains. Elon Musk then goes, if you need a school, you've lost already, to which this other account goes, incredible. At this rate, you're actually going to make me side with the leftists who want you treated like a hostile foreign agent. Then Elon Musk started banning all these kind of right-wing accounts. He suspended Laura Loomer's account. He suspended all these other right-wing accounts, and that's kind of that sets up the stage right there, Popok. So you talk about this arcane H-1B visa kind of process, but it's also showing that these tech bros, they're like, we need immigrants, just ours for engineering, not the other ones where we have labor shortages.
That's great. Let me unpack a couple of things. We use some shorthand. I want to make sure everybody's on the same page with us. When we say tech bros, those are the owners and principals of tech companies in Silicon Valley and Provo, Utah, and in different places around the country, mainly men. This kind of the Joe Rogan type, Elon Musk type people, and we shorthand it with tech bro. H-1B is on paper. It has always been a very, very important way to connect talent to jobs where Americans can't fill those jobs, at least not at the capacities that are necessary. I'll give you an example. We're in the midst of not just an AI renaissance. We're in the midst, because of Donald Trump and other policies, of a cryptocurrency and crypto mining renaissance. You have to mine through computer, quantum math and computer and electricity and power. You have to mine the Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency. And so states like Washington State that have hydroelectric and other places are becoming the home of crypto miners. But they need, for instance, electricians. Right now, if your child doesn't want to go to college, or does want to go to or wants to go to college, think about the job of an electrician, because they are in short supply and high demand in places like Washington State because of crypto mining. And so take that to the next level. Electricians are needed, but also people who have engineering backgrounds, strong work ethic, and the like. So H-1B is on paper a very good program. Now, there's abuse. Let me be fair. There is abuse in the H-1B program. The Bloomberg just did a great investigative report that came out a couple of days ago about abuse in the H-1B program, where 50% or more of the H-1B visas, which are these golden lottery ticket visas that give you a path to ultimate citizenship in this country, they're being obtained not by the individuals in India, but by placement agencies that are acquiring en masse and applying for en masse the actual H-1B. And so they're the middle person, and they're paying the actual tech person very little compared to what the company would pay them. But it's an inefficient market where it's hard, apparently, for the Microsofts and Teslas of the world to find them on their own. These companies are coming in the middle, sometimes fraudulently applying under bios and resumes that don't really exist, and they get 50% or more of the allotment of H-1B. So you got a problem there. I get that problem. On the Laura Loomer front, this is the part that gives you and me special delight here on the network. Here's a comment that she wrote. Think about the crazy that went into this statement, where she combines the Great Replacement theory, which is a racist, bigoted theory that came out of Europe that has been mapped onto Democrats and liberals by saying all you care about is replacing white people and white voters with black and brown people. That's the Great Replacement theory. So you have that going on in her head. You got Elon Musk trying to hire these people from India and defend the hiring practices around it. And it all came together in this statement that she made. She said, and she addressed this one to Ramaswamy. Ramaswamy knows that the Great Replacement is real, almost saying he's part of the Great Replacement. It's not racist against Indians, she wrote, to want the original MAGA policies I voted for. I voted for a reduction in H-1B visas, not an extension. See, here is the disappointment of MAGA voters who are thinking they got duped in the process of voting for Donald Trump. I wonder, Ben, as a thought experiment, if we reran the election, the November 5th election, how many MAGA voters for Donald Trump would either stay home or not vote for him, now knowing what he has done in his cabinet or his proposed candidate and what he's doing with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. I'll leave that for comments today in the chat. Here's what else she said. The tech billionaires, another word for tech bros, don't get to just walk inside a Mar-a-Lago and stroke their massive checkbooks. I wasn't sure where that statement was going. And rewrite our immigration policy so they can have unlimited slave laborers from India and China who never assimilate. Then we're back to the Great Replacement theory. You don't even know what MAGA immigration policy is. That's a MAGA OG person. And then others have attacked it well. And the problem is you have, like you said at the top of this podcast, you've got leaders in the inner circle for Donald Trump who are running one of his major initiatives, cost cutting or whatever DOJ is supposed to do, who have said one of two things. Either, and this is them talking now, either Americans are retards or they're a part of a culture of mediocrity. Okay, that is not a great way to treat your voters. And this is what happens when Donald Trump decides to bring into his government people without an FBI background check, who aren't going through Senate confirmation hearing, who are known loose cannons, who are known to be contrarians, and now they're I called it the cannibalization of the MAGA party. They're cannibalizing each other. That's what we're watching. It's backbiting that's turning into cannibals, and we're here for it. And this just shows you, if this is happening on December the 28th, you can imagine what's going to happen on Jan 3 and on Jan 20 and moving forward, because this party, this Republican Party, is not disciplined. They are not disciplined. They all rallied around for all different weird reasons around Donald Trump. 9 million people decided to stay home and sit out democracy. That's not including another 11 million who were registered to vote and didn't even bother. So you have that whole group. And now you've got Donald Trump telling, we're going to talk at TikTok time, telling the Supreme Court that he has the business skill, the acumen, and the political mandate. He keeps talking about this mandate. As you said, this coalition is barely held together with tissue paper and chewing gum. I mean, and there are fissures that are already showing themselves. And that is where fair-minded people and people at the center, or people who are progressives or liberals or Democrats, that is what we need to exploit. The quicker we can take advantage of that and the complete chaos that's going to be them trying to govern in the House, in the Senate, through executive order, the quicker we can exploit all of these divisions, the quicker and faster we can make Donald Trump a lame duck president. We have to take all of this, pin him down, and in the House, look, the House Democrats learned a very valuable lesson and did really well in the remaining hours and days of the 118th Congress about how to be an effective party in opposition, effectively making Hakeem Jeffries the co-speaker of the House. That's going to continue. The Senate, a little bit harder, but the Senate is a little bit different of a body. So they're not proposing many bills. But the Senate Democrats have to do their part per committee, especially during the all-important confirmation hearings that we'll be covering live here on the Midas Touch Network. And then the court system comes into play when Donald Trump sees the chaos and can't get anything done in the Congress, and he tries to stroke executive orders and do it by pen. That's where the lawsuits come in, and that's where the federal courts, friendly federal courts, are going to help us there. The quicker we can make Donald Trump a lame duck president, so that we crush him at the midterms and we get back one or both of the chambers of Congress, the better.
What was Donald Trump doing in both of those scenarios when the continuing resolution was derailed by Elon Musk, and when Elon Musk was in this civil war with the other, I think, larger base of MAGA is the Loomer type people than the tech bro type people? What was Trump doing? He was golfing and posting on social media weird stuff. He was golfing over and over again. And this is the thing about him. And this is his lack of leadership style. He's not a real leader. He runs away from all of these issues. He can campaign. He loves campaigning because he loves lying. He loves going around. He loves the attention. He loves crowds. He loves manipulating people. He loves that aspect of it. But when it comes to kind of the nuts and bolts of leadership, the banality of boring leadership, of going through spreadsheets and going through finances and looking through documents and holding meetings and running an organization, it's why his organizations in the past, most of them have gone bankrupt. It's because he's a bad leader. He runs away. His handling of COVID, like a miracle. It's all just going to go away. Let's pretend it didn't happen. And then he would do the press conferences that he would love because of the ratings and the attention. And so he does not have control over his own base. But then again, he really never had control over anything his entire life. It's a guy who was handed, everything that he had from his daddy. And that was his life. If he did nothing with his money before being in office, he would have had more money than he would have had anyway. He got bailed out by banks over and over again. He files lawsuits against banks after he screws up stuff. This is just who he is. It's not a quirk. This is inherent in his dysfunctional leadership and personality. Take our first quick break of the show. When we come back, let's talk about Gaetz. Let's talk about Miller. Let's talk about TikTok. We'll be right back.
As the chilly days of fall roll in and the holiday rush begins, it's easy to forget about taking care of yourself. Enter Mudwater, a soothing yet energizing coffee alternative that helps you stay sharp and balanced through the busiest time of the year. Made from a blend of chai, cacao, and calming adaptogens like lion's mane, reishi, and chaga, Mud Water gives you a natural boost without the crash or coffee jitters. Mud Water is like your holiday self-care ritual in a cup, packed with antioxidants and wellness benefits that nourish your body while keeping you centered and clear-headed through the chaos of the season. And as you prepare for the holidays, it makes the perfect stocking stuffer for anyone in need of a little extra self-care. Whether you're powering through gift wrapping, decking the halls, or simply enjoying a quiet moment to yourself, Mud Water is the ultimate way to bring balance and calm to your fall and holiday routine. Does your 3 p.m. cup of coffee make you stay awake at night, contemplating life choices and the meaning of existence? Yeah, let's not do that again. Switching to Mud Water can help you say goodbye to sleepless nights. It's got all the energy without the late night existential crisis. Give Mud Water a shot and save big, because our listeners get up to 43% off your entire order, free shipping, and a free rechargeable frother. Head to mudwtr.com/legalaf. When the survey asks, please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Every single ingredient in Mud Water's products are 100% USDA certified organic, non-GMO, gluten-free, vegan, and kosher. There's also zero sugar and no sweeteners added, making it a clean and wholesome choice for your wellness journey. To use Mud Water, you simply drop the powder into your favorite mug. Pour some water on it and give it a mix. Some go wild and add creamer, honey, or even CBD. There's also caffeine-free blends available. The best part about Mud Water is it provides sustained energy without the spikes and crash of traditional coffee. Using Mud Water is as easy as cozying up on a crisp fall afternoon. Head to mudwater.com and grab your starter kit. For a limited time, our listeners get up to 43% off your entire order, free shipping, and a free rechargeable frother at mudwtr.com/legalaf. That's up to 43% off your order at mudwtr.com/legalaf. After you purchase, they ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Let's face it, after a night with drinks, I don't bounce back the next day like I used to. I have to make a choice. I can either have a great night or a great next day. That is, until I found Z-Biotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink. Z-Biotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Now look, I won't lie. I was a bit on the fence about pre-alcohol initially. But then, while hanging out with my fantasy football draft crew over at our favorite Jersey Shore sports bar, I gave it a shot. And believe me, it's the real deal. I spent the entire next day doing all my favorite things with my family, including a long hike on our favorite trail. I kept hearing about pre-alcohol, and I wondered what it was actually like. But now that I've tried it, I believe the hype. And with their GMO technology, they will release different products that help address toxic byproducts of modern living in the gut. Go to zbiotics.com/legalaf to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use LegalAF at checkout. Z-Biotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/legalaf and use the code LegalAF at checkout for 15% off.
Thank you to all of our pro-democracy sponsors right there. Give them some support if you can. Some great products, some great stuff, and they help support our independent media network grow. We have zero outside investors. And Popak, I talked about the latest Podscribe charts, which ranks the podcasts, not like the whole networks, because network to network, we were actually beating Rogan in the ad week write up. But in Podscribe's podcast, they have Rogan 1. The Midas Touch podcast I do with the brothers was 2. And then Legal AF was number 8.
We're number 8.
We're number 8, and that's beating a lot of those other podcasts that you hear about. But why am I mentioning this is because we have no outside investors. Those pro-democracy sponsors help us grow. And also, if you can, subscribe to Popok's YouTube channel, the Legal AF YouTube channel. So, Popok, we talked a lot about Matt Gaetz, and a number of hot takes. I don't think we really need to go through this ethics committee report. I think people get it that Matt Gaetz there was a finding that there was substantial evidence that Gaetz was involved in statutory rape of a junior in high school, that Matt Gaetz was involved in illicit drug use while he was holding public office.
It was as bad as we thought it was going to be, except for they couldn't find substantial evidence of sex trafficking, but everything else is a tremendous stain on his, to the extent that his reputation could be stained, a tremendous stain on his reputation.
Exactly, Popok. And, you have the text messages, and people are wondering, well, why didn't they find by substantial evidence that there was sex trafficking? Gaetz would use this website called Seeking Arrangements, which is now called Seeking, which is like a sugar daddy website that kind of masquerades as that. And Joel Greenberg, who did plead guilty to sex trafficking, he would find the girls and the women on this website. They would kind of meet up and have dates, that they would call them dates. And then there would be payment exchange for services. And then in one of the lawsuits that was brought by a Republican lobbyist arising out of this kind of whole thing, a number of the women were deposed. And if you look at the depositions, they were asked, do you think that you were trafficked? Do you think that this was trafficking? And the women would say things like, this was what was expected in this situation. No, I don't think I was trafficked. So if you're wondering why the prosecution did not go that extra step, I think they looked at the deposition testimony from some of the women. And I'm drawing a distinction here. That's not the 17-year-old girl is a girl. That's statutory rape. That should have been charged, in my opinion, in Florida. It wasn't because of the fact that Florida is controlled by Republicans and Gaetz a Republican in that state. But other people have been charged with that in Florida, which I'll get to in a moment. But that's why the feds thought that they would struggle to get that conviction, because I think that, some of that deposition testimony, which is not flattering at all for Matt Gaetz, even though Gaetz was like posting that as though like,
well, let me before you go on, because sometimes this gets lost. His wingman, Joel Greenberg, is in jail for 9 years in a federal penitentiary, and willingly testified and would testify against Matt Gaetz. We'll talk about that when we get to the crimes part. He was a former tax assessor for Seminole County in Florida. About Matt Gaetz's age, they ran together. When I say wingman, I mean like they did things together. They had parties, according to the report, drug-fueled parties, underage girls, and the rest. Everything that Matt Gaetz did, Joel Greenberg went to jail for 9 years. So just leave it at that.
So here's some of the testimony. And the way it would work is Gaetz never had the Seeking account. It was Greenberg who had the account, and Greenberg was the one who would find them. And so here's like what Gaetz posted. He goes, this is what Gaetz was saying was like part of his defense. Another one of the ethics witnesses who was an alleged prostitute claimed she was indeed not when actually pressed in a deposition. This won't be in the ethics report because, of course, were you escorting, working? What were you doing? I wouldn't consider any of those. The answer, I wouldn't consider it any of those. There was a lot of times where I did not get paid for being there. In that time, I thought a lot of these people were my friends. Question, okay, all right. So you wouldn't characterize anything you did in 2017 as sex work? Answer, no. And what she's saying is a lot of times I wasn't paid, but then there were times when she was paid. He goes, this is what Gaetz's other defense was. Giving funds to someone you are dating that they didn't ask for and that is in charge for sex is now prostitution. There is a reason they did this to me in Christmas Eve report and not in a courtroom. So this is his defense. Giving funds to someone, he says because he's dating, he claims it's a date with the ladies that were found for him. and that they didn't technically charge him, but that it was a given what was going to take place as part of this relationship, payment for sex, that therefore there was nothing wrong with it. Because here is the deposition that he posted. So it wasn't the amounts charged did not depend on how attractive a guy was. Is that fair to say? Answer: I never charged anyone anything. Like I said, it was just given. And Gaetz is like, oh yeah, innocent. It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, how is this I'm listening to you.
How is this a defense?
I'm waiting for you to get to how this is a defense.
He cherry picked that as the best piece of evidence for him in this. And by the way, you're right, Popok. I want to be clear. I'm disappointed that the DOJ did not prosecute him for the same things as Greenberg. I wanted to tell you why their justification was. There's other depositions where the women said that they didn't think that they were trafficked. And I thought the DOJ looked at that. And again, we have a lot of complaints with what Merrick Garland did, but judge for yourself if you thought Garland should have brought those charges.
Look,
but clearly,
one thing before you move on. Mike Gaetz, the Republican chairperson of that bipartisan ethics committee, it's 5-5, except they give the chair position to whoever's in the control of the House. That's the Republicans. And, they fought long and hard to delay the publication of this report. And then another good reason Matt Gaetz shouldn't be the top lawyer in America and the attorney general. He files a lawsuit to try to stop the publication after it's published and it's moot at that point. But, just gains negative attention for himself. But in the opposition or the dissenting one page that was attached to the dissenting members of the committee, they went out of their way and actually spilled ink to say, we don't disagree with any substantive finding of the committee about the substantial evidence to support statutory rape, illicit drug use, bribery, improper use of office, and all that. We just don't think we have the jurisdiction to have released that report because he's no longer a member of the House. But the first line, the best that his supporters on his MAGA Republican supporters on that committee could come up with is we agree with the findings. We just don't think it should have ever come out. And then there's one little secret Easter egg here. Somebody flipped on Matt Gaetz, because in order for that report to be released, they had to get a vote from the Republican side. I don't know who it is. I'm not here to out them, but somebody grew a conscience and said, maybe the ethics committee is the one committee in the House that should be publishing their findings and not withholding it because of the nature of the name of our committee. And that got somebody, maybe not a MAGA, maybe, then this reminds us all that there are moderate, what I call country club Republicans that aren't MAGA, that aren't automatically going to vote with the Speaker of the House and MAGA in the House. Donald Trump knows that. Donald Trump knows that it's going to be difficult for this Congress, this House, to get anything passed. He knows that. We watched what happened in the 118th first term and second term. It was a do-nothing Congress. If it wasn't for Hunter Biden, they would have done nothing at all. No bills got passed that helped the American voter at all. And every time they just careened from one crisis to another related to the debt ceiling or how to fund the government. That's all we ever, other than that, the American people could just ignore Congress because it did nothing. It'll do nothing again if the Democrats have their way, and they do. And they're disciplined. Hakeem Jeffries learned at the knee of Nancy Pelosi. He knows how to hold the Democrats together. And so Trump knows that. That's why executive orders are going to be the focus of Donald Trump's efforts to try to implement his policy in the shortest amount of time possible. And that's where this Legal AF comes in, our Legal AF channel comes in, because all roads lead to a court disposition. But you want to turn to crimes. Why don't you think, I have a question I wanted to ask you about Matt Gaetz. Now that the report is out, are we going to assume that Trump's going to give him a pardon on the federal side and it's now left to the state to do something about it? What's your handicap on whether he gets pardoned now because that report has been published?
Zero. I don't think he gets it. He's not going to be prosecuted by Florida prosecutors in DeSantis' state, and Trump's DOJ ain't prosecuting him. So
does he get a pardon? Do you think Trump pardons him?
No. I don't think it's needed because there's no. I think they'll just let the statute. They'll let the statute of limitations run, and maybe at the end of the Trump administration. But look, the link here is that Pam Bondi, Trump's head of DOJ, who will get confirmed because she was the Attorney General of Florida, and that gives you the experience whether you like it or not.
Yeah, she's going to get.
She'll get. She's not one of the people who I think won't get confirmed. But she was the Attorney General in Florida when all of this stuff was going on with Gaetz, when Gaetz was not prosecuted for statutory rape. And then all of the pretty much local district attorneys that would have jurisdiction over Gaetz in Florida are DeSantis puppets or DeSantis picks in Florida. So that's why, he doesn't really run the risk of being prosecuted, even though he should be. I mean, look at this though, Popak. Miramar. I looked at other people who did.
I know Miramar. I used to represent Miramar back in the day.
So Miramar cop arrested accused of sex with 17-year-old girl. And this was June 23rd, 2023. This story was this cop met a girl on Tinder. She said that she was 23 years old. The cop was 28. They went out on a date. They had sex. She then said that she was 19. They had sex again. It turned out she was 17. Statutory rape. You don't get any. There's no issues of intent or anything. He was charged with that. Think about he was charged with that, but Matt Gaetz in Gaetz' situation where it was done in a kind of prostitution sense. And Gaetz was not charged with, and there are other examples.
I'm going to give you the insider Florida also reason for that, as you know, because we've got Dave Arenberg on the network. The local DAs in Florida, where I practice and I've lived for a number of years, are known as the state attorneys. They ultimately answer to the attorney general, but by each county has its own state attorney. And the reason that Miramar cop that Miramar is in Miami-Dade County is because Kathy Rundle, who's been the long time, over 30 years state attorney, I know her well, Kathy Fernandez Rundle is the state attorney, and she is law and order, not MAGA, Republican, but not MAGA. And she runs a very tight ship there with her prosecutors. Dave Arenberg in Palm Beach County, I guess he might be leaving soon, but he was for a long time the Palm Beach County state attorney. And so he runs his show there. Now, if the governor doesn't like the way that the show is being run, I think I said the attorney general they report to. Not really. They really report to the governor. And the governor, as you pointed out, is DeSantis. DeSantis has taken on what he's considered to be woke, liberal, or democratically appointed prosecutors, like the one in Hillsborough County and different places, and threatened to replace them or actually fire them. There's been lawsuits about him firing prosecutors who he didn't like. So any of them that are thinking, and Matt Gaetz, I believe, is from the West Coast of Florida. I forget exactly what where his district is, but wherever it is, it's MAGA/Republican country. One other thing, though, some of the things that are obvious crimes that are coming out of the report, some of them don't have a statute of limitations. And so if he doesn't get the pardon on the federal side and the Democrats take back the presidency in 4 years, he could be prosecuted for some of these things. There's a couple of those that don't have actual statute of limitations. So that's where we are on the Gaetz report.
That's where we are in the Gaetz report. But I want to just, pivot. One, I think the DOJ should have charged him, but they didn't. That's just my opinion. They thought that they weren't going to get the prosecution. Statutory rape should be prosecuted in the state of Florida. Republican leadership there at the highest levels did not prosecute Matt Gaetz. That was a decision that they made there. But you want to talk about real weaponization? Who did the DOJ under Biden prosecute with the Republican special counsel? Hunter Biden for what? Hunter Biden was not a member of Congress. He was not in a public position. He was a private citizen. Biden wasn't the president then. Biden wasn't the vice president then. It was in between Biden administration, being the VP and the president when Hunter engaged in the conduct. But what did they go after Hunter for? There was no allegations of statutory rape with Hunter. It was consensual sex with adults, consenting adults. What was the Hunter charge? Oh, wait, I know what it was. It was for, let's pull it up right here. filling out an ATF, alcohol, tobacco, and firearm form, saying that he was not under the influence of drugs around that time period. Wait a minute, doesn't Matt Gaetz want to abolish the ATF? And wait a minute, one of the things in the report was that Matt Gaetz was under the influence of drugs and alcohol and hard drugs around this time. And he's a gun owner. So did he fill out that same form when he was buying guns? Because we know he was buying guns at that time. Should there be an entire special counsel investigation into Matt Gaetz instead of a private citizen like Hunter Biden? I mean, just look at what Hunter was charged with. I mean, this is wild. According to the indictment, Hunter purchased a Colt Cobra 38 SPL revolver from a federally licensed firearms dealer on October 12th, 2018. By the way, same time when Gaetz was doing all these drugs, according to the report, the congressional report. When purchasing a firearm, a prospective purchaser must fill out a firearm transaction record ATF form 4473 and certify that all of his or her answers on the form are true and correct. As alleged in count one of the indictment, Hunter Biden knowingly made a false written statement on form 4473 intended and likely to deceive the dealer he purchased the firearm from when he certified that he was not an unlawful user of or addicted to any stimulant, narcotic drug, or any other controlled substance. And by the way they got the evidence about Hunter was when Hunter took responsibility for his actions years later and talked about in his autobiography that he was addicted to drugs and how it took him so much to overcome it. And it was his message to other users and people who suffer from drug addiction about how you can overcome these dark days. And he mentioned it was a dark day. He purchased a gun while he was addicted to drugs and how it was the lowest point in his life, but he's taken accountability for his action. The Republicans go after that guy. Not the statutory rape guy, not the congressman who they want to make attorney general. So let's be very, very clear here what's going on. And frankly, I'm disappointed that Democrats didn't give a more robust defense of Hunter Biden and the public in general. They shied away from an issue that I think actually made President Biden so freaking relatable. We all have someone in our lives, and we may have a tragic story where someone passed in our lives. This may be something about ourselves. People who are addicted to drugs or alcohol or have alcohol abuse issues and who are struggling to get by, who need a helping hand, not a wag of the finger and not the ridicule and not the pushed aside that leads to even worse behavior or even kind of worse outcomes. You need to be helpful. So to me, one of the things I loved about President Biden was to see a father who was always with his son at the lowest moments, when Biden wasn't running, when the spotlights weren't on, just private assistance to help your kid get out of a difficult situation. And I know there's so many people out there who know that they wish they had that in their lives or that they want to be like that in their lives. So whether that's legal or not, that there's a moral component of this as well. And sometimes there's the intersection of morality and law, but we want to talk about real weaponization. It's Hunter Biden. That's to me where this was directed at. Popok, I want to get your take on that. Pivot to Stephen Miller and TikTok. We got to take our last quick break of the show.
This episode of Legal AF is brought to you by Wild Grain. This holiday, treat yourself and your loved ones to fresh baked deliciousness. Wild Grain's new fall and winter pastries are here. But don't wait, because once they sell out, they'll be gone for the year. If you're not familiar with Wild Grain, it's the first baked from frozen subscription box for artisanal breads, pastries, and pastas. Wild Grain's boxes are fully customizable to your taste and dietary restrictions. In addition to their classic variety box, they recently launched a new gluten-free box and a plant-based box that is 100% vegan. Best of all, they take the hassle out of baking, since all items bake from frozen in 25 minutes or less with no mess or cleanup. Listen, my family and I fell in love with the New England apple cider donuts and artisanal Bavarian pretzels. Perfectly homey for the fall and football season, and with natural ingredients to boot. We love that it's freezer to table in just under 25 minutes and gives the house that "is grandma here and baking fresh bread again" homey smell that brings us back to our best childhood memories. Wild grain will definitely be a big contributor to our Thanksgiving table this year and is ready to join us as a special treat when we visit friends and family for the holidays. Impress your guests with minimal effort this holiday season. Wild Grain is offering our listeners $30 off the first box, plus a free item in every box when you go to wildgrain.com/legalaf. You heard me. You can now get $30 off your first customized box when you go to wildgrain.com/legalaf, or you can use promo code legalaf at checkout. We've talked previously about how much of your personal data is out there on the internet for anyone to see. Your name, contact info, social security number, and home address. Even information about your family members. All being compiled by data brokers and sold online. As a person who exists publicly, especially as someone who shares my opinions online, I am hyper aware of safety and security. And privacy matters more than ever. It's easier than ever to find personal information about people online. All this data hanging out there on the internet can have actual consequences in the real world. That's why I decided to give a Delete Me subscription to my wife. Now look, my wife is the handyman in the family. It does so many things beautifully, but tech is not one of them. And I worry about her online presence, especially given my work in the media. Giving her a Delete Me subscription made her happy and let me relax. It was the perfect gift. And once I gave it to her, she started using it, and then she realized how insecure she was before and how protected and proactive she felt now. It empowered her. That's why I personally recommend Delete Me. Delete Me is a subscription service that removes your personal info from hundreds of data brokers. Sign up and provide Delete Me with exactly what information you want deleted, and their experts take it from there. Delete Me isn't just a one-time service. Delete Me is always working for you, constantly monitoring and removing the personal information you don't want on the internet. To put it simply, Delete Me does all the hard work of wiping your and your family's personal information from data broker websites. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me, now at a special discount for our listeners and their loved ones. Today, get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/legalaf and use promo code legalaf at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/legalaf and enter code legalaf at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/legalaf, code legalaf.
Welcome back to Legal AF, where we last left off. Popak, I was just talking about the disparate treatment of Hunter versus Gaetz. On the one hand, Gaetz, public person, Congress member, picked to become an attorney general. He did all of this while in public trust. Statutory rape. None of that's the case with Hunter. Hunter, private citizen, no statutory rape, was not picked to be in an administration in a top position. They went after Hunter for filling out an ATF form that said he's not addicted to drugs. And also, I mean, what a vague statute in and of itself. Are you addicted in that moment? Are you addicted after? But anyway, ostensibly Gaetz filled out that same form. There's no special counsel going after Gaetz. There's none of that.
So a couple of things. One, I want to make one correction. I said that Kathy Fernandez-Rundle, the longtime 30-year prosecutor in state attorney's office in Miami, was Republican. I'd known Kathy for a long time. She's actually a Democrat, which also explains why there's prosecutions for things like that in Democratic Miami-Dade County and not in other places like where Matt Gaetz lives. Secondly, on the one of the reasons that there's this distinction between Hunter Biden and Matt Gaetz is because let's just call it out. There was a mistake that was made by Merrick Garland, who bent over backwards to appoint special counsels, usually from a different party, in order to act like appropriately that the agency, the department, was independent, it wasn't weaponized. And so rather than keeping it in-house, there's no reason that they couldn't have kept that investigation and conclusion about whether to prosecute or not at Main Justice. Just because it was the president's son, I don't think automatically under special counsel's rules he had to do that. But, Merrick Garland bent over backwards to create special counsels, and make them either Republicans or not friendly or whatever. And there's an old line about to a hammer, everything is a nail. And to a special counsel, everything is something that has to be prosecuted to justify their very existence. And so Weiss, the special counsel, or special prosecutor for Hunter Biden, had in his mind to conclude that there was a crime committed, a crime that is almost never prosecuted. 9-day ownership of a gun where he thought better of it and threw it in a dumpster. And he self-reported it in his own memoir. That's who you go after. If Hunter's last name was Horowitz, let's be frank, he would not have been prosecuted. It's because MAGA was all over Weiss to do something, and he felt he had to do something. And they should have cut that deal in Delaware that would have resolved both the tax case and the gun case in one neat package. And it probably would have led Hunter Biden to have served some jail time, which he was willing to do and offered to do at that moment. But that moment passed, and then it got really politicized, as you would expect it would, because of what the Oversight Committee run by MAGA and the Judiciary Committee run by MAGA was doing on a daily basis to make themselves relevant and to get attention to go after poor civilian Hunter Biden. And yet, you're right. Maybe because the Department of Justice didn't want to be accused of being weaponized. So they dropped Matt Gaetz. You and I all both agree on so many things, but one of the things we agree on is that they should never have dropped the investigation on Matt Gaetz. And they should have, but they were like, well, we don't want to be weaponized. He's in office and okay. So they don't do it. That was another big mistake. There's going to be a lot of criticism in the memoirs and the books that'll be written about Merrick Garland's tenure. I think that's another one to chalk up to that. In terms of the crimes that were committed, these are crimes that were committed as alleged and now substantially backed in the ethics report. It's up to a strong-willed prosecutor, probably one of the Democratic ones in Miami, to try to find some link or nexus. I'll give you an example. Here we go. We're just brainstorming here. If they really went out of the country and they took any of those cheap cruises out of Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach, or Miami for some of this, those are controlled by Democratic state attorneys, and they could be investigating whether that trafficking happened out of a port in one of those three places. I would look into that as well. As to the Fed side, you're right. They're not going to do a darn thing about it, but the hypocrisy stinks and just shows you where the lack of Republican values are on these particular issues. I have a question for you before we leave Matt Gaetz. He's threatened to come back. He didn't come back in the 118th. He can't come back in the 119th. They're already going to fill that position. Where do you think he ends up? And then I want to ask you, what do you think DeSantis does with the open Senate seat that will come up with? Because now that what's her face? Laura Bush. Lara Trump has decided, I don't even know what her big announcement was, but she's decided she doesn't want to have that Senate seat. Do you think DeSantis picks himself for the Senate seat? What do you think happens there? It's very interesting to me.
No, I mean, I think DeSantis is going to pick a DeSantis loyalist who's not in the MAGA orbit. There's still that conflict between him and Trump that exists. Trump did a de sanctimonious thing the other day as well. I think that DeSantis was waiting to see if Trump was potentially going to make him Secretary of Defense and get rid of Hegseth. Trump went all in on Hegseth, and then DeSantis didn't want to get played by Trump. So he then responded, no, Lara, to which Trump then responded, oh, that's de sanctimonious. Lara acted like she was bowing out. And if you think about the people in Trump's world who may have got that position, like a Byron Donalds or someone else, I just think that DeSantis is not going to go to someone who's that loyal to Trump. I think he may pick someone who's not even necessarily on our radar, who's very loyal to DeSantis.
Why not himself? Why not? He's termed out. Why not put himself in the position?
I think that will look very self-serving. He'll get mocked for it. I think he's positioning himself to run in 2028 against J.D. Vance. I think that he takes, I think he takes time off after, or, he views it as he phases out and then he runs against, he runs in 2028. I think if he appoints himself, he'll get mocked for that in the MAGA base. I think it's a bad political move.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bad look. I mean, not that I'm trying to give DeSantis advice,
pointers,
but I'm trying to think about it to answer your question that he's not going to appoint himself. I mean, he'd rather be governor. And why be a senator and then be under kind of Donald Trump's MAGA Senate orbit when you have Florida? It just, if for an ambitious, power-hungry guy, it doesn't seem like a move to get less power than you're going to get right now.
Yeah, I mean, the governors do in Florida move into the Senate. Rick Scott's an example of that. But you're right. I think it's a lot of political grief. The juice is not worth the squeeze to put himself in, although it's happened before. Governors have put themselves into that short time track. We give him 2 years in the Senate, and then he'd have to run again. But you're right. If his ultimate ambition is to run against a weak Republican field, and not to pat ourselves on the back, but let our bench on the Democrat side, I will take it any day and twice on Sunday for the not just for midterms, but for the presidential election that is coming up after this one. Then the Republican side. I mean, this the recycling of Nikki Haley and DeSantis, all previously rejected, and Ramaswamy and whoever else we're not thinking of, a couple of governors. I would take our bench in a heartbeat, and because there's going to be we're seeing chaos now in a MAGA civil war. Wait till Daddy's not around anymore to, with his thumb and his oppressive tactics to hold that party together. It just flies away as far as I'm concerned.
Here's the thing. Democrats need to get out of their own head. We talked about Merrick Garland. To your point, criticism is probably putting it lightly. What's going to happen after that tenure about how he did everything. But he was so worried about looking fair that he ended up being unfair to his own team and to his own people. And he basically weaponized it against his own people and gave all of the benefits and favors to the other side. Democrats need to be Democrats again. It's clear right now in this moment that there is a strong rejection of oligarchs and billionaires and the 1% that's screwing everybody else. People are getting wise and savvy to the fact that the reason that we're angry and right now is actually not because of the transgender volleyball player from San Jose State University, or because there's a congresswoman from Delaware who's using the female bathroom in Congress, or that an immigrant in Ohio is not actually eating your cats and dogs, but that the billionaires are literally eating your lunch. That they've created a structure that's rigged the game against the average Jane and Joe and American to screw them, that private equity has slurped up all of the supply of housing, which has made it completely unaffordable so they can commoditize it and sell it. And when they screw up, they get bailed out by the government, by their rich Republican friends in the government. People are getting wise and they're pissed to this. And Democrats need to act like Democrats and not Republican light. Democrats need to lean into these issues and not get so psyched out. They need to stand up and be loud and proud and say, no, we're actually here for the people. And they shouldn't wait until the midterms or in the election to start going to the factories and speaking to the firefighters. I always say ABC, always be campaigning. And you've got to have a constant on switch, because otherwise you look phony and inauthentic when you go back to these communities and constituencies 90 days before an election and ask for their vote. You have to go and you have to start explaining to them right now, look who Donald Trump's appointing to this position, that position, that position, that position, this position. That's all Project 2025. They're going to take away your benefits. You're a union worker. Why are you voting against your own union? What are you doing? You're voting against yourself and your family and higher wages and overtime and your Social Security and Medicare, and explain it to them now. Don't wait until the election. Anyway, I don't even know why I went on that tangent, but Democrats be Democrats, okay? And focus on the issues and deliver for the people and message those issues and do those issues. That's what I want to see. Anyway, regardless, let me be very clear about this.
DBD, Democrats be Democrats.
Democrats be Democrats and ABC always be campaigning. Let me just dispense with the Stephen Miller thing quickly because I want to spend more time on the TikTok thing. Let me do Miller. I'm going to give you TikTok. So Stephen Miller runs this organization, America First Legal. Technically, it's a nonprofit. He sent the following letter. To various cities, including San Diego, calling them sanctuary cities. He's citing the Constitution and saying basically, we're going to go after you if you stay as a sanctuary city. He's going to be a senior advisor to Donald Trump. He already is, but he's going to have an official position soon. So to me, it seems like he's using this nonprofit letterhead and the nonprofit organization to engage in kind of threats, knowing that he's going to have this position. I mean, what jurisdiction does First America Legal have over San Diego's policies about how they want to deal with their own border situation in San Diego? That's actually a border town that's close to these issues. So, the whole purpose of this is Stephen Miller wanting to make himself feel tough and powerful to get a headline, which is why I really don't want to give him more attention than 3 minutes because he's looking for the headline. But there is a concept I want to talk about super briefly. Then I'm going to turn over TikTok to you, Popok, which is quasi-governmental agencies and quasi-governmental power. At some point when an agency is draped with the all of the things that come along with being a government agency and they're acting on behalf of a government, they're no longer just some random nonprofit. They're no longer just some private entity. They become official government actors or quasi-governmental actors, and then they're subject to certain constitutional limits and restrictions and obligations like Freedom of Information Act requests, unlike private industries. Like I couldn't do a FOIA request right now of Microsoft, like as a private citizen, but could you be doing a FOIA request of Doge and Elon Musk's emails and Vivek Ramaswamy's emails? Are they now governmental actors? Should the American public get access to all of their emails, text messages, data? They'll say, no, we're private citizens, but you're out there saying official government account, official this, official that. To me, there is a strong legal argument and precedent here that all of these private actors who are now masquerading as public officials, even like the czars of this, border czar, this person, why can't people start doing FOIA requests of their information? Now, they'll reject the FOIA request and they'll say, no, we can't give it back. Then it will spawn all of this litigation over kind of, are they quasi-governmental actors or not? But to me, that seems like the righteous fights to be able to do in order to bring transparency to these issues. So I tell that to you because these are the things that we're grappling with and thinking about behind the scenes about how you deal with this situation where Trump is contorting government institutions and blurring the lines between governmental and non-governmental and kind of mixing and matching right there. But Popok, speaking about mixing and matching, Donald Trump was Mr. TikTok ban in 2020, right? He invoked it under national security law. He wanted it banned. TikTok sued Trump. It's TikTok v. Trump. There have since been a lot of hearings on this issue. And to be fair, there have been some Democrats who have been like, you know what? When Trump initiated this process, some Democrats have said this. He may have had a point back then because it seems to be that TikTok is using, and they're owned by a company called ByteDance, and then ByteDance is owned by a parent company in China. And the ByteDance, the American kind of company, claims that it has a firewall between the Chinese company, that's the main parent company, but frequently that's been demonstrated to be inaccurate and false, and that China's been able to surveil on America. This is the argument from the Senate Intelligence Committee, that the Chinese government's surveilling on you when you have TikTok. Yes, you may enjoy the app. Number one, there's a concern about the algorithm interfering with elections and the algorithm influencing behavior. But two, they're surveilling on you. And then TikTok goes, no, we're not surveilling on you. We promise you we're not giving this data to China. And the Senate saying we're doing it. So Trump did an about face, right, Popok? Jeffrey Yass is this big Trump donor who's an investor in ByteDance. So he's been pushing Trump to now favor TikTok, even though Trump didn't win the youth vote. He got more youth vote this time. And so with that background, he wants TikTok. So give us the league. What's going on with the amicus? What's happening?
All right, I'll be happy to. I agree with you, by the way, on the other point. I want to just do 1 minute on it. I've done a fair amount of public records request law. I had a local government, municipal government practice back in another life. And you and I have been successful in the Marjorie Taylor Greene case, and where she tried to use her private Twitter at the time, which was really her public Twitter. And we went after that successfully. And I think, sunshine is the best antiseptic. And we have to make sure that if Donald Trump is improperly delegating and offloading to his in coordination with these quasi-governmental agencies, these NGOs, these non-governmental organizations like America First and the rest of them, which are going to serve as Donald Trump's private pit bulls, but for his administration policies, I think they've crossed the line. And I think it's worth the fight to find out what the coordination is and the rest. I mean, for America First to threaten sanctuary city mayors and others, which is doing Tom Homan, the soon-to-be border czar's work, sounds like they've crossed over. We'll continue to follow all of that. On the TikTok world, I said in a hot take that I did recently that whether you like it or not, platforms like TikTok are watching you as much as you're watching them. And they're getting from you not just information and from, let's be frank, the children of America. I mean, it's a lot of, 12 to 30-year-olds who are using and on TikTok on a regular basis. I haven't seen the demographic breakdown of it, but there's adults, of course. There's people that are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s and beyond that are on there. But there's that sweet spot of the demographic. And they're not only making videos, but they're filling out forms. They're participating in surveys. They get a link to something like, hey, do you want to see what you'll look like when you're 50 years old? Upload a photo. And you're like, yeah, I want to see that. You upload a photo. And now, because TikTok is ultimately owned and controlled by the Chinese Communist Party through ByteDance, you've now given to the Chinese and the Chinese military and their military grade computing and weapon systems a face recognition database, and you're helping their AI by doing that. You think it's fun. Hey, look what I look like when I'm 50. But I'm not sure I want to do that one now, but maybe. So there's all these different ways for them to collect data from you and, just as you said earlier, surveil on Americans. It's not just an innocent platform where kids do challenges and, all get together and do some sort of flash mob or a dance move in a new craze. It's not. It's more nefarious and insidious than that, and because it's in the hands of our enemy. I know the guy's I know that Donald Trump's inviting the president of China to his inauguration, but as last I looked, China is still our enemy. Not just our frenemy or our co-superpower, just like Putin is. You wouldn't know it by the way Donald Trump acts, because he treats these people, it would be like, how do I put this? It would be, there's a new Superman movie coming out, and I saw the preview for it. It'd be like Superman sort of hanging out with Lex Luthor and all the other people, because, we're all sort of superheroes. And so, no, I mean, they are the red menace. They always have been, and they want to wipe out our way of life and our democracy and undermine our ability as the leaders of the Democratic brand worldwide to have moral authority. And all they want is their own territorial ambitions to be achieved everywhere around the world. That's why when you go to Central and South America, and you go to, Donald Trump, who rarely leaves America. He hates to travel. It's a known fact. He hates travel outside of America. Brings his own pillow and everything. He woke up to find out the Panama Canal was being used for Chinese cargo, and that China has invested in Panama. Wake up. If you go to foreign countries and you travel, you have an interest in the world around you, you will see that China has invested hundreds of billions and trillions of dollars into the infrastructure of Caribbean countries, South America, Central America, and in Panama in order to gain a foothold and to have these countries be in their sphere of influence. That's how they've done it. It's a little bit of a problem in America. We've been so focused on America infrastructure and America first that we forget about the sphere of influence that's being perpetrated by these other countries on a global basis. And so TikTok, although it's like a Trojan horse. It's all candy colored and happy, but behind it are these very stone-faced Chinese communists that are trying to do a couple things: surveil, get information for their AI databases and algorithms, and fourthly, to use TikTok and TikTok influencers to sow discontent, disinformation, and brainwash Americans. Just like Facebook is I would say unwittingly duped. They're not. They make a lot of money, so they don't care what content is on their platform. But that is a prime example of how our enemies try to sow division and put each other seething at each other's throats, which MAGA thinks is a great thing. That's why Donald Trump's like, I love that. They're putting us at each other's throats, because Donald Trump can only exist in a seething cauldron of political division and animosity. So of course he loves it. That's the collusion, small c collusion. It's not that Donald Trump is actually coordinating through his campaign with the Russians and the Chinese. It's that he willingly benefits from it's the enemy of my enemy is my friend theory. He willingly benefits from them wanting to do the same thing to the American people, F them, that Donald Trump does in order to get elected. Because if we're all kumbaya and peaceful and happy and like the shining city on the hill and, you know, the aspirations of Clinton and Kennedy and Reagan and, you know, even the Bushes, then Donald Trump does not get born into that environment. He only gets born in an acid bath of fighting and division, you know? And so he loves TikTok. It probably helped that the owner, the president and chairperson of TikTok was in one of the lines of tech bros that went to Mar-a-Lago recently, and the fact that a major donor for Donald Trump is an early investor in TikTok and has been whispering in his ear since before the election that he wants TikTok to be saved. So now Donald Trump has come in with a really weird, I've never seen this before in my life, a president-elect who's not even a president-elect yet. Let's remember, that's what Jan 6 is supposed to be. Jan 6 makes you the president-elect. He's now the president-elect. He files a brief with John Sauer, who's going to be, you know, just again, no smoke or sunshine, going to be confirmed as the Solicitor General of the United States, but is currently getting paid as a private criminal lawyer and appellate lawyer for Donald Trump. So he files an amicus brief that nobody asked him to file. I have to actually look on the docket, Ben, as to whether they got permission and has that been accepted as a brief. I assume they'll accept it because they labeled it President Trump, not even President-elect Trump, President Trump's brief. And in it, he says, the briefing by TikTok, he sides automatically with the Chinese. The president-elect of the United States sided with the Chinese on First Amendment grounds against the American people and our national security. I can't put too fine a point on that, okay? Could you imagine any Democratic president or any other time in our life where it would be okay for the guy we just voted to be president to intervene in a case and side with the Chinese against American security? No, never. But it's not the problem on mainstream media. It's not presented that way, the way you and I do it here on Legal AF. It's always this, as you like to call it, this both sidesism. Oh, it's interesting. Today there was a brief filed by President Trump with John Sauer in which he didn't take a position on the First Amendment. Not true. He took a position on the First Amendment. He sided with the Chinese, if you actually took the time to read the brief, and saying that he's got the business acumen to solve the problem. Okay, next, Bill, how's our weather in the Midwest? I mean, that's how they report. Read the effing thing. And if you read it, it says, I will solve the problem. I will balance national security interests, which have been overblown with business terms. Just give me time after I get into office. And so he's asking from an amicus position, not a party position, for the court to give an injunction or a stay, an emergency stay, to allow him and his administration time to broker a deal and come up with a new bill. There is a law already on the books that requires this to be sold for sale because of national security risks and concerns. Okay, that is the law. The Supreme Court has to look at that law and decide whether it's constitutional, not give breathing space to see if Donald Trump, the ultimate haggler, is going to be able to handle a deal with the Chinese. The last time I heard about him wanting to make a deal about the sale when he was in office last time, he wanted a VIG, a commission, to go to the U.S. government for brokering the deal. Which is just, totally crazy and inconsistent with his position that they are a private company that has First Amendment rights. Tik Tok's position, based on the brief that they filed, which I did a hot take on Legal AF, is that it's not their First Amendment rights. It's the First Amendment rights of 140 million Americans that are using TikTok that's being denied because we're going to have to sell, which I don't see the link there. Because if it's going to get sold, then they'll have a place to go. And there's no constitutional right to have a platform. They'll go to another platform. We all left Twitter and X. We went to Blue Sky, wherever we went. And there'll be another TikTok, that won't be owned by our enemies. Like, think about this. Well, what if there was a Russian platform that Americans decided to embrace and use, not knowing that underneath it, all the metadata and data was being used against them and compromising our national security? That's the way this issue should be posited to the American people. Now, I'll make a prediction about it. You got an amicus brief. Let's assume for a moment that the court's going to accept it. They don't have to accept amicus briefs. They can go, no, we got this. We don't need that brief. But I think because it's, the president, Trump, amicus, here or there. But it is a procedurally wacko request by a non-party to have an injunction or a stay to give that non-party, who's the head of the executive branch, time to broker a deal on a law that's on the congressional side. Talk about separation of powers problems. You got them all over the place. If I'm the Supreme Court, I'd be like, okay, that's interesting. We're going to make a declaration. We have oral argument on the 10th of January. That's when it's scheduled. We'll cover it here. We're going to go forward with that. We have full briefing. We saw your amicus. We get it. You want to do some sort of business deal. All right, that's interesting, but that's not interesting to us as judges. We're going to do the hearing on the 10th. We're going to issue our decision before the 19th of January, which is the drop dead deadline for the forced sale based on the bill. They didn't stay that, by the way. They're just trying to cram in the hearing and try to get a ruling out. For all of us that were pulling our hair out, waiting for them to make a decision on the immunity ruling that went on for months, and waited for the Colorado ballot insurrectionist issue months, and waited for the abortion decision to come out in Dobbs. This one's going to come out in a week after the oral argument, and they're going to have to make a choice. Either they're going to stop the bill or the law, finding that it's unconstitutional, or it's not reasonably proportionally shaped to fit the problem, and they got to go back to the drawing board, or they're going to say, as the 3-judge panel 3-0 in the DC Court of Appeals said, it's constitutional, and Congress's word is law here when it comes to this type of issue, and they are going to have to go through with the forced sale, and then Donald Trump can get in on the 20th and do whatever he wants after the fact, because I haven't heard anywhere, Ben, unless you have, that there's actually a buyer that's willing to come in. Right now it's a fire sale because nobody's going to give them fair value because it's a forced sale. And that's one of their arguments, sort of a due process argument. But they're not going to get it sold on the 19th. They're going to have to either go dark or come up with or do a fast sale and get it out of Chinese communist hands. And then Donald Trump can do whatever he wants after the fact. That's my view. But this is MAGA controlled Supreme Court. You may have a different view. What do you think is going to happen?
No, I think that there are a lot of billionaire Trump donors who are coming up with the plan to acquire the algorithm now, led by that Jeff Yass guy, who's a big kind of Trumper. Whether that could be achieved before the 19th is unclear. The broader point is that very recently, Donald Trump's big position is that TikTok is an existential threat to our national security, and it must be banned immediately under executive orders for imminent national security harm. That was Trump's position in August of 2020. It's only gotten worse since then as TikTok has gotten bigger. Not those concerns have not alleviated.
The database is bigger.
Now, the Congress made a similar finding. Now, I like TikTok. I enjoy, before going to sleep, I look at TikTok. I watch these silly videos that the algorithm sends me. Now, that enjoyment, that liking of the platform, I have to at some point know that there are areas and issues in national security law beyond my layperson's purview of what's taking place here. And when you can get Congress in a bipartisan way to agree this thing is really a threat, I think that that needs to be taken, seriously.
I got a question.
And so,
I got a question. Do you think Trump could or would buy it for Truth Social?
I think that that would not shock me if part of he would not have the funds to do it himself. But would it shock me that part of his plan behind the scenes to buy time is to make Truth Social an equity partner in the capital stack that ultimately acquires the algorithm with Jeff? Yes, I have zero doubt in my mind that that's something that he would be willing to do. And in my opinion, it's something that, to your point, that he's probably exploring how to get Trump media through the value of his shares right now, to have those shares acquire the algorithm. He wouldn't be fully able to do it, but in concert with another capital stack of other investors, absolutely, to turn a valueless Truth Social, even though on paper it has value because the Magas buy the stock, and acquire something of real value in TikTok.
And then we'll have an emoluments fight in court about whether he's just benefited himself as the president, lined his pocket with a business.
Exactly. And that goes back to the original point I made with DBD. Democrats need to be Democrats, and ABC always be campaigning. These issues right here shed light on a oligarchy, a use of funds by billionaires to screw over people. They're not hiding it anymore. I thought it was pretty clear before, but they ain't hiding it. And Democrats need to realize that they need to get out on all the platforms, the same way President Biden did an interview here on the Midas Touch Network, and he led the way. You need to get out there and you need to message this to the American people each and every day. And one of our roles here at Legal AF is, again, in just reporting on the facts, to show you what's going on, to show you the legal structures, how our legal system's under attack, what can be done, what can't be done, what may be able to get done. And we're going to keep doing that every week with you. So Michael Popok, thank you so much. That's the kind of full roundup on TikTok. We'll follow up more as we learn more details. Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 4 million subscribers. Would love that. Subscribe to the Legal AF YouTube channel. It's free to subscribe. Make sure you subscribe there. And really have a great new year. I hope you had a happy holidays, happy Christmas, Merry Christmas, happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa. And just know we're going to be here with you every step of the way. Next year, the year after, the year after, and the year after that. We're here with you. You have a lot to be proud about. Even though the election didn't go the way you probably wanted it to go, you're still fighting, you're still here. And I'm telling you, compassion, love, the truth will prevail. There are setbacks along the way, but we're in this in the long run with you. So we love you, we appreciate you, and shout out to the Legal AFers and shout out Midas.